Hiring managers usually can't hire just anyone that they want, not in the federal government. You may want them and they want you, but there's someone in between stopping that connection, and that's HR. Human resources, they have good intentions. They're there to make sure the hire is legal. They're using their time and resources in order to expedite the process. But sometimes there's a disconnect. Every federal agency is different. Some have better relationships with their HR offices, and other ones, they don't. Wouldn't it be nice to know which agencies have the best relationships with their HR? Well, it's possible because the information's public, and we're going to go over today the top 3 best and worst agencies when it comes to their HR relationships. When it comes to the satisfaction level between HR and the hiring manager, the lowest ranking agency is the USAID, the Agency of International Development, with a score of 56 points. Keep in mind that all of these scores are out of 100 possible points, and we're going to go over exactly what these scores mean. The next agency is EPA, the Environmental Protection Agency, with a score of 58.6. After that, it's the DOI, the Department of Interior, with a score of 63.8 points. So why would the hiring manager be upset? Well, you have to understand the process of getting referred to the hiring manager. So you have your questionnaire and your assessments and your resume. HR is adjudicating your experience, and they're putting it into a category which is usually considered best qualified. That list, which is called a cert, goes to the hiring manager. The hiring manager, they look through there and they pick who they want to interview. They don't have to interview anybody. And many times they don't interview anybody, and they send the list back and they'll have the job announcement reposted. But why is this? Let's go over the main reasons why the hiring manager isn't selecting anyone. The top reason is they just weren't satisfied with anyone on the cert. The next is the resume didn't include the specialized experience required. I've said this 100 times. Look on the job announcement, under qualification, their specialized experience. Make sure those words are in your resume and that your experience is formed around them in an organic fashion. Do that. I say it so many times. Everyone says that. But when I look at resumes, it's not being done. And here's a point of confusion that you might be experiencing. When you look at the job announcement, you see the categories that say attention to detail, communications, and things like that. That's not what you're focused on. Go back up and look at specialized experience. That is what you're focused on, where it actually has the verbs on what they expect the person to be doing. That's what you want to make your resume match. The rest of it, you should communicate to it, but you shouldn't have to do it deliberately. Because if you're using enough details with your resume, if you're putting in your action and how you did it and all that other stuff, then it's going to speak to attention to detail. Next is the candidate declined the job offer. This happens more often than you realize. And this is why agencies, they'll typically have 3 people or at least 2 people that they want to hire, and they'll do reference checks. And once you find out you have a reference check done on you, you get excited because you think you're getting the job offer, but maybe you were the number 2 or the number 3 person. So people, they apply in volume usually, so there's multiple job offers, and they take the best one. So if this one's going to pay more, obviously it's a no-brainer. You take the one where you're going to be compensated best. And this puts agencies a little bit in a bind. It frustrates people in the hiring process because it can mean that they have to repost the whole thing. Because believe it or not, there's times where they have 3 people identified and none of them want the job offer. And this happens when it comes to veterans preference. They'll have multiple veterans there. And the worst thing that you could do in this situation is completely try to ghost them. Don't do that. That doesn't help anything. Communicate with them. Hey, I took a better offer. That's why I'm not accepting this job offer, but thank you for your time. Do something like that, little professional courtesy, and email them back. Okay, the next one is during the interview, the candidate didn't have the skills. I've been in some interviews where I'm sitting across from the hiring manager and they're asking me questions about plane engines in the Air Force. And I'm like, what is that? I don't know anything about jets. I don't know what you're talking about. This is a clear case where the HR didn't do a good enough job when they were selecting who was best qualified, because for that position, I should not have been best qualified simply because I have no idea about components on a plane. But if you find yourself in that type of situation, don't lose hope. Don't get too discouraged. Just continue to do the best that you can, because there are some candidates that end up getting offers for positions they didn't even interview because they made a good impression to the hiring manager. Next is the position is no longer funded. Usually government job positions, they're budgeted all the way up to step 10. So if it's a GS11 position that's new in the office, the budget should be able to carry it all the way to step 10. Now, what ends up happening though is the money has to be reallocated, or for whatever reason, that money is no longer there, so they have to pull that position down, and that can disrupt a job offer. So that's been happening a lot, I think recently, more so in the VA, especially last summer. It was bad, but it can happen anywhere. Same thing with hiring freezes or budget disputes or continuing resolutions. Anything like that can really slow the hiring process down. Next is the candidate declined the offer due to the salary. This is the lowest reason that hiring managers are upset, but it happens still where people apply for a job and they know the salary is not enough. Like, why would you apply for a GS9 if you know that $60,000 a year is not going to cut it for you? Now, for the positions that have ladders, where they're hiring from GS9 to GS13, you need to input on there your lowest GS grade that you're willing to accept. If that's GS12, put GS12. But if you put lower, if you apply for GS9s or if you put GS7 and you know you're not going to accept it, you're wasting everyone's time to include your own time, because you're not going to get a higher GS grade. You're not able to negotiate a higher GS grade. You can negotiate the steps, and you should, because that could be the difference between $30,000, $40,000 a year, depending on the GS grade, but you're not going to be able to negotiate the actual grade. All right, so now let's look at the top 3 federal agencies that have the best relationships with their HR offices. Number 1 is NSF, which is the National Science Foundation, with a score of 86.6. Number 2 is OPM, the Office of Personnel Management, with a score of 84.8. And number 3 is NASA, with a score of 84.7. No big surprises here. If you look at the best places to work, the ranking list, these agencies, they're all ranked very high. NASA is number 1. So it's not surprising that they have good relationships internally with their HR offices. Now, if you're new to applying to government jobs and you want to understand the process a little bit better, from when you get referred, when do you get interviewed, how long does it take to get the job offer, all that information. If you're interested in that, I want you to check out this video next. If you would like to see more videos like this, please click like and subscribe. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you in the next one.